Welcome along then to the French football show. It has been another crazy week in the world of Olympique de Marseille. They were dumped out of the Champions League in embarrassing fashion, really, in Bruges, losing 3-0, thinking that they were going through, only for Benfica's goalkeeper to score a 98th minute goal in Real Madrid. They threw away a 2-goal lead on Saturday in the last 5 minutes at Paris FC. Supporters are turning on the players, including the maligned skipper Leonardo Bellardi, who's coming in for plenty of criticism. Among the newspaper reports to emerge over the last 48 hours, we are being told the following. Sporting director Mehdi Benatia apparently is fed up with certain players, including Mason Greenwood, who he feels is not 100% implicated. Apparently, according to L'Equipe, the pair ignore each other at the training ground. One of Marseille's most likeable and loyal players, Amir Murillo, has been told by the coach Roberto De Zerbi that he is not good enough for Marseille and has been asked to pack his bags. Matt O'Reilly has also been shown the door. He is on his way back to Brighton. There was also, by the way, a training ground fight between Geoffrey Kondogbia and Arthur Vermeeren. And to try to calm things down, the Marseille hierarchy are having a meeting today on Monday with the Marseille Ultras. I'm sure that'll be a very calm and productive meeting. So now the scene has been set. We are going to ask the following questions. Is there a method behind Marseille's madness? And is De Zerbi still the man for the job? It is time for Le Dossier. Joining me today, I've got the writer and broadcaster Tom Williams. How's it going, Tom?
Hello, Matt. All good, thanks. All good. All well your end?
Yes, very good. A very sort of exciting weekend again in Ligue 1 circles. We'll get into that, particularly in part two. Andy Scott has just raced back from Strasbourg, where he was commentating Strasbourg PSG last night. Are you okay, Andy?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah. I'm a little bit flustered because it's been a bit of a rush to get back here from the Gare de l'Est. So apologies to you guys for the time that you've spent waiting for me, but I'm here to deliver a good podcast.
I'm going to start by asking you, Tom. I think we're going to take a step back a little bit and try to look at the football club with a bit of perspective, because they're third in the table. They finished second last year. It's not like things are absolutely horrendous, but it very much feels that way at the moment. So my question to you is can Marseille be successful again in the current setup? And, by that I mean De Zerbi working closely with Mehdi Benatia, obviously Pablo Longoria, the president.
It's a very good question, Matt. And it's not an easy one to answer because, they have been successful to an extent. Getting back into the Champions League last season, some of the football they've played, the atmosphere at the Velodrome, as it so often is, but particularly in the last couple of seasons since De Zerbi's come in, there have been moments when you have felt this real synergy between the fans and the coach and the staff and the players. And this is not the first time that that the Marseille have decided to go all in on a very volatile coach. But it is a real sort of tightrope that they find themselves walking once again. And once again, not for the first time. When you decide that you're going to employ a coach who is as kind of fiery and volatile as De Zerbi, when things go well and you get that synergy, it's brilliant. But as soon as things start to wobble, and they wobble more frequently at Marseille than at any other French club, there is a danger that the whole thing blows up. And not only do they have a very volatile head coach, but the people around him, as you said, Mehdi Benatia, Pablo Longoria, these very kind of volcanic characters who seem to fly off the handle quite easily. It just logically doesn't feel like the basis for long-term success, because things could appear to be calm at OM. And they've occasionally, very occasionally, do appear to be calm. But then the kind of environment around Marseille is unique in its ability to just create moments of tension and moments of conflict. And whereas other clubs, the leading directors react to those moments by trying to dampen things down, you feel like the directors at Marseille, and I'm thinking particularly about Longoria and Benassia, their instinct is just to kind of keep raising the temperature.
I think that the word that you used a couple of times there, Tom, was volatile, and that is you can sum up Marseille in that one word effectively. I mean, the city and the football club, they kind of play off each other, and I think that it does appear to be, as you mentioned with Longoria and Benatia, it does appear to be their strategy to really keep things on edge. Which is a very risky strategy, and it has, broadly speaking, delivered an element of success thus far because, as you say, they've kind of established themselves once again as a major power in the French game, because there was a spell there where they were, this is a club who've frequently had seasons where they've tailed off and been in like mid-table. You think back over the last 2 decades, but now they are a team who we expect to be at least competing for top 3, top 4 every season, but they want to go the next step. And I think that actually it's a problem for French football on the whole, because I think that French football as a product, if it's to stand any chance of selling itself internationally, it actually really needs Marseille to be successful. This is a club that should be doing better, and what is stopping them from doing better on a regular basis is that inability to provide stability from the top. Longoria and Benatia running this club in the way they do, having a coach who is so on edge all the time, this chain smoker, this permanently, kind of furious coach on the sidelines who feeds off the energy from the stands but also brings that energy onto the pitch. It is just not a recipe for stability and long-term success. That's the reality, but it appears that they don't really want that.
No, I mean, we'll go a bit deeper on De Zerbi and whether he is the man or not to take them forward. But Tom, just about the churn of players that you mentioned, because that's a kind of a Longoria thing. That seems to be his kind of way of working. He's very much a wheeler dealer. Used to be a sporting director, has a huge number of contacts, and he loves doing business and seems to do some very good business. Frankly, I think the finances have probably improved because of Longoria's ability to do good deals. But again, you can't get that stability if there's 12, 13 new players coming in each summer. Guys, look at this stat. You're all watching our content. That's great, but you've got to hit the subscribe button. Do it now. Does Longoria basically need to change the way he plays and surely try to establish a spine, because there isn't really that, is there, at Marseille?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to remember that the context of Longoria's arrival, you go back to the early years of the Frank McCourt era, and the first Marseille president under McCourt was Jacques-Henri Hérault, relatively competent, technocratic, Anglophile, Anglophone president.
Relatively. Competent.
Relatively competent, let's say. Competent in certain ways, less so in others. Very strong LinkedIn vibes. I mean, hated by the Marseille fans, and ends up kind of, being bundled through the door slightly unceremoniously, and replaced by Longoria, who was previously working as a sporting director. And he's always been a sporting director. He is a transfers guy. And as you say, Matt, he's extremely good at it. He is one of the best talent spotters in the game. He has got one of the biggest contact books in European football. And the feeling at the time was, Hérault is sort of, a very kind of American-style figurehead for a major football club. We need someone who is all about football. And because he is president, you now have a sporting director's sort of modus operandi as the overarching vision for an entire football club. Ordinarily the president is the guy who's like, well, hang on, we're spending too much money here. Hang on, we've only just signed this guy. Why are we selling him 3 months later? Why is this bloke being trashed in the press when, he's a really nice man and he's quite a good player? But because he's a sporting director himself, he's part of that churn. And then, of course, he brings in Mehdi Benassia, and Benassia's now brought in all of his people. And so, Maria's a great example. Last season, Jonathan Klaus, it was this sort of fairy tale story, plucked from obscurity in the German second division, fantastic experience at Lens, becomes a France international, winds up at Marseille, and then certainly halfway through next season, he's being publicly badmouthed by Benassia in the press because they're trying to get him out of the club, and it just, as we keep saying, just creates this culture of players walking on eggshells all the time, and that can't be healthy.
And also, I think as well, I mean, you mentioned Longoria replacing Jacques-Henri Hérault as president. Let's not forget the actual context of that. I think it was exactly this time 5 years ago when André Villas-Boas left the club because supporters in the sort of broad sense of the term, stormed the training ground. You know, that's the kind of thing that happens at Marseille, and it led to this revolution in the upper echelons of the club, and Longoria is made president. And then, of course, the early stages of the 2023-24 season when Longoria tries to leave the club because of, again, kind of, can we call them similar incidents, which led to Marcelino leaving the club in shock after a few weeks, and Longoria effectively wanted to leave but somehow couldn't.
So Andy, bring it back to today. We know the Ultras have a big influence at Marseille. They look after the ticketing at the football club, and they feel like they are qualified to have a say in the running of the football club. So there's this meeting, Andy, today with the Ultras. According to reports, where Longoria, Benassia, and Zerbi will be there. How can you imagine that is going to be? Is there any way that can be a constructive meeting?
I find it hard to believe that it will be constructive, because I think there will be a lot of very fiery characters. As we know, all of these people are fiery characters. Certainly De Zerbi, certainly Mehdi Benassia. I feel that Pablo Longoria is maybe a little bit more measured, but he is strategically placing these fiery characters in these senior positions around him. And the guys, the capos of the Ultras are not going to be, I think in general, that kind of role is not going to go to somebody who's especially measured. They're going to be fiery, they're going to be unhappy, and they're entitled to be unhappy. You know, their team are underachieving. So I can't imagine it's going to be an entirely consistent. What are they going to say? I mean, I think the key point now really is we're at the stage of the season. The winter transfer window is about to shut this evening as we're recording this. There will be more movement in and out of the club, I imagine, in the next 7, 8 to 10 hours before the window shuts. Marseille have a huge cup tie tomorrow, and they have the league left to play for, at least Champions League qualification. That's it. What else can you say other than, do we keep De Zerbi or does he leave? And I think that's what it comes down to right now. I would say that it doesn't make much sense to sack the guy now, but I'm not sure that he is he really going to get a third season? I'm not convinced at this moment in time.
I think the main message from the supporters, and I don't know, I've got no inside knowledge here, but I think it's going to be regarding Bruges and what happened on Wednesday night, and just that is not acceptable for Marseille. Obviously, you can lose a football match, but to lose it in the way that they did, without fighting, stopping playing in the last minutes, thinking let's just protect our 3-0 deficit because we can still go through. That is not Marseille, and I think that'll be the main message. We're probably not going to find out that much about what is said. But Tom, Andy thinks De Zerbi needs to stay on, but doesn't see this working in the long term. De Zerbi said on Saturday after the 2-2 draw, "Don't worry about me. I'm always ready to go to war. I'm here for 5 or 6 years," which is a kind of interesting way of looking at it. It's kind of saying, well, no one's going to sack me, which I don't think is impossible either. But what do you think, De Zerbi? Can he do it in over a longer period?
I suspect not. I think just his way of working, the very intense way that he manages his squads, the way that he drives his players. I just fundamentally don't think you can do that for more than 2 or 3 years before things blow up. I mean, it's hard to know what success looks like for OM this season. We've all been clinging to the hope that they might be about to mount a proper title challenge. That doesn't look like it's going to happen, if we're honest. As Andy said, this Coupe de France game against Rennes is enormous because, lest we forget, Marseille have not won the Coupe de France since 1989. And with PSG being knocked out, this is a perfect opportunity. I think if they have a good cup run, if they qualify for the Champions League again, that would have to count as a successful season. But as ever with Marseille, by the time you get to the end of every campaign, everyone is so worn out, and even more so when you've got a coach like De Zerbi. I mean, I get the sense that he genuinely loves the football club. I think he could have, there's that story about him showing the contract that Manchester United offered him to the Marseille players as a sign of his commitment to the club. And and I think as a person, the former Brescia ultra, he really identifies with the people on the terraces. I watched that slightly peculiar documentary series that OM brought out last summer, and that really comes across when he's addressing the squad. He's talking about the people in the, people watching the game, the amount they've had to pay, the distance they've had to travel. I think his heart really is in this, this project, in this club. But it's just, there is just so much turmoil. And even when things are going well, there's turmoil. So when things are going badly, or when things look like they're about to nosedive, as they do currently, you just feel like the next enormous crisis probably isn't very far away.
Yes, well, it's going to be fascinating to see a huge week coming up with that game in the Cup against Rennes, and then the Classique next Sunday, which is, of course, going to be very, very interesting. And we're going to talk about what is going on exactly in Ligue 1 in the second half of the show. I think the halftime whistle is about to blow here